Hi there, how's it going? Rick again, and I thought I'd do something a little different in today's video. In a couple of my recent or more popular videos on the channel, I've talked about how I configure my looper, what kind of settings I use, and how I think about designing my loop workflow to support my style. What I haven't done as much of is really illustrating my style in kind of brass tacks, if you will. How does it work, or how does it play out in actual songs? So today's video, I'm going to be going through 5 pretty short examples, mostly on the easier side, where I kind of go through how my loop settings enable me to do kind of different styles of songs. Now, in broad terms, my loop style tends towards getting in, building quickly, getting out. My hope is that within 30 seconds or less, the song is recognizable, maybe people can even sing along if it starts on the chorus, and that I can do kind of more songs per unit time than, basically you get the kind of benefits of looping without necessarily as many of the drawbacks. It's always a balancing act, as everyone who does looping knows, but I try to err on the side of fewer, quicker loops, building as I go, and looking for opportunities to add things to loops along the way in the song. So you'll see a lot of that here. So in this video, I'm going to be focusing, as I mentioned, 5 arrangements, but in each case I'm going to talk about the nature of that arrangement. Specifically, what problem, if any, am I trying to solve with it? So there's a tricky bit here, and I'm not sure how to create the loops that I need without taking a lot of time to do it, and kind of what I want it to feel like. So how do I achieve a specific kind of vibe? So with that, I'm going to kind of give you an overview from the perspective first of what the song kind of represents in terms of the challenge that it's giving me, and also how to approach it, or how I approach it. While my demos and techniques will lean heavily on my own loop settings, of course I'll be driving my looper, so they will 100% be what my looper will do, is what you will see. My goal is to make it pretty transferable to anyone who has access to a 3 or sometimes 2-track looper. I will definitely highlight areas where I'm using some of the things that my setup is specifically giving me, and you can kind of figure out where, if anywhere, that works in your setup. If you want a lot more detail about how my setup is constructed, I do have longer videos where I go into gross detail both on how I designed it and how I drive it, my workflow specifically. But in the interest of keeping this video self-contained, I'd like to focus on just some very high-level TLDR, if you will, level stuff on what my loop settings are, so you kind of know what you're looking at when we get to the demos. Now, while this is by no means an exhaustive rundown of my configuration, what you need to know for this video is as follows. My tracks are all multi-mode. That is, that they can all be played in any combination at any time. You'll see in these examples some songs where different tracks can represent different sections, and others where they're all used together. Maybe a chorus is the same chords, but adds some bass or some other embellishments. I prefer to have a one-size-fits-all configuration, but you could absolutely create an alternative configuration where some tracks are in single mode for a couple of these arrangements. I used to have something like that. I used to have an alternate configuration, but I'd had the failure mode in that case is that I started a song in the wrong one, and I had basically train wreck and start over. So for me, I prefer to have a one-size-fits-all, one preset that handles every song. I also have my looper broadly in a record to play to overdub workflow. I probably could save some time and improve by finding a way to go from record to overdub, but a lot of my recording, I actually changed the guitar tone on a lot. So there's a lot of not just playing the guitar through, I'm switching guitar tones quite frequently, so I found this works for me. Now, in terms of tracks, I am using the RC600. It is a 6-track looper, but I'm only ever using 4, and in this video, you'll only see me use 3. So I'll talk about what tracks 1 through 4 are configured to and how they differ from each other. So track 1 is set to 1 measure long, and it will always start and stop immediately when I click. This means if I record track 1 after recording something else, I have to be pretty precise with my timing to get the groove right. You'll see that in some of these songs. So tracks 2 and 3 and 4, which as I mentioned, you won't see me use in this video, are always set to be a whole number of measures long, that is measured against either the tempo of the RC600 or as a multiple of track 1 if it's defined. In terms of timing, these tracks don't start immediately, but instead they start on the next available measure. That's true for recording and playback. They are also set to stop at the end of the currently playing loop. This timing gives me a lot of flexibility to transition between loops, as you'll see in the arrangements. And finally, track 2 is a bit special, as I have a dedicated foot switch that will start tracks 1 and 2 together, but I don't have a dedicated foot switch for any other combination. I basically ran out of assigns for that. So If I'm thinking about a section that I want to have come in kind of with a big percussion plus part, that part is going to be on track 2 most of the time because I have an ability to start just those 2 tracks together. And finally, while it's not a looper setting, I should say that my guitar lives in E flat standard, not E standard. Because if you want to play along, you might be wondering why it doesn't sound right. So just note that my guitar is in E flat standard if you try to play along with any of the parts that you see me playing. And with that, let's get right into the first arrangement. So this song represents the most basic kind of arrangement, and it's one of my recommendations for anyone starting with a loop pedal. It's just 2 chords, it's really easy to loop, it's really easy to add percussion to, and you get the benefit of adding a solo section. So ideal if you're going to be looping it, maybe a lot. I think this is one of those that's almost strictly better on a looper than without. So to start the song, I'm going to start the song by looping the basic chords. I'm going to put them on track 2, which is where I tend to put a lot of my guitar parts, my primary guitar parts. Once those are down, I add basic percussion using my octave pedal and my guitar. You've probably seen me do this in any number of videos, on track 1. And again, because track 2 is already going, I need to make sure I click in that play on track 1 exactly in time with the 1 beat in the percussion. And what I tend to use the pulse on the RC600 to help me hit that 1 as close to accurate as I can. Note that after I create that loop, I don't need to hit play a second time to end the loop because it will stop automatically at the end of a measure because it is track 1 set to be 1 measure long. Now at this point, you already have the loops needed to play the whole song. You really just need these 2. You could even do it on 1 if you only had a 1-track looper. But one thing I like to do when I have a spare track, which for me track 3 is quite accessible, is I like to try to add some other accent to fill dynamics out in the song. And in particular in this song, there's a little bit of a percussion variation on the 2nd chord in the progression. So to add that, I'm going to use track 3 play to start recording. And again, I want to hit it right before the track 2 loop restarts to keep them in sync with each other. So I'm going to hit it on the 2nd chord in the progression, anywhere in that measure. And then once it starts recording, I'll be able to add the accent on the drum and then immediately hit track 3 play to lock in the recording. Track 3 is set to a variable number of loops or measures, and I do need to tell it how long it is. And that's it. Now one final note here is that as I mentioned, use track 3 because it's very convenient for me here. If your looper is a 2-track looper and you have, for instance, an undo redo function that's very easy to get to, you can also add that accent as a layer on top of your secondary track or wherever your 2-measure loop is. And you can actually use undo and redo to add and remove it as well. That's just a trick for those of you who maybe don't have access to a full 6 tracks or 3 tracks or whatever. And with that, let's get into the next arrangement.
Now here you go again, you say you want your freedom.
So this song is really similar to the previous song in that it's primarily just 2 chords, so it's very similar in terms of the build, but where it differs notably is that there's a secondary section where there's a solo that happens, and that solo is played over different chords. Now, if you're doing this in your own arrangements, there's a bunch of things you can do here. You can just ignore it. You can kind of skip through it like it's not there. You can play chords and hum. You could do any number of things. I'm choosing to actually add those chords as I go because it's a very short section and I think it breaks up the loop a little bit. And I also like that that has the secondary benefit of kind of giving away the game that I'm not just playing the tracks, I'm actually looping. So I'm going to try to incorporate that solo section in the middle of the song. But to start, we're going to build it very similar to the previous song. I start the song just the same way as last time by building the chord loop on track 2. Then I'm going to add a basic drum groove on track 1 with the same timing considerations as last time. And finally, this song also I want to make the bass a little more prominent, so I'm actually going to add an overdub loop on track 2 that is the bass line or a simple bass line for the song. And the great thing about this is at this point I have everything I need to play the song. Again, you don't have to do the solo section, but I'll show you how I do the solo section. And as I play the song, I will add little embellishments, add little lead parts. It's a more active guitar song than the previous one. Now, when I get to that solo, on the last measure prior to the solo, that's a chorus in this case, I'm going to hit stop on track 2, which will cue track 2 to stop at the end of that measure, or the end of that loop rather, which is the end of the measure because we're on the last measure of track 2. Then I'm going to hit play record on track 3 immediately. So that will cue the end of track 2 and it'll start it recording track 3 on the next measure. Then I'm going to play the chords for that chorus, rather the solo section. And then at the end of those 4 chords, I'm going to hit play record again on track 3, which will cause it to play back. Then once that starts playing back, I turn on my distortion, which I'm using an effect, or a couple of effects actually, on the RC600 with this button here. Play the solo section. So then finally, on the last measure of the solo itself, I'm going to hit stop on track 3, which will cue the solo section to end. And I'm going to hit play on track 2, which will cause it to come in on the next bar, which in this case will be going into a verse. Again, it's the same, track 2 is the same loop for the verse and the chorus in this case, so it works for both of them.
Here I go.
And that's it. So at this point I've played the solo. I have the solo chords on track 3. Sometimes I clean them up and delete them by holding stop on track 3, just so I don't accidentally start them later. But for your purposes, that's basically how I do Dreams. With that, let's get into the next song.
Mr. Jones and me tell each other fairy tales.
So in this song, I'm going to go for something a little different. And Mr. Jones I do as kind of mostly a primarily acoustic song with a little bit of drums and bass to support it. So the goal here is to get loops to support the bass parts of the verse and the chorus, and then kind of play the rest of the song as if it's just an acoustic cover. There's also a bit at the in the middle of the song with a bridge where I cut out the loop, slow down the song, and then kind of bring it up to tempo and come back in on a chorus, but we'll get to that when we get to that part. So the trick here is really going to be about building the bass parts to support the song as quickly as possible so I can kind of get into the song proper. So there's not a lot of extra build time here. First, on this song, I'm going to record the groove on track 1 first. Once I've got that going, I keep the octave pedal engaged and I go to track 2 and record the bass part for the chorus. Now at this point, once that's recorded, I have a little time to wait to let track 2 kind of come around again so I can end it and start recording track 3. I'm going to use that intermittent time to add an overdub on track 1 to fill out the drums a bit more. You'll see me do this on a number of songs as well. It's just a way to kind of add a little bit more to the loop while I've got this kind of dead time. Then I'm going to hit stop on track 2 and hit record on track 3 to, again, keeping the octave pedal engaged, record the verse bass pattern. And then once that's done, I'm going to hit play on track 3 to end that recording. I'm going to turn off the octave pedal and immediately start singing the song. So let's see how that looks here.
La 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 la, yeah.
Now, having done all that, there's kind of a couple other driving the loop parts that I need to kind of think about going forward. One is every time I go from the chorus to the verse or vice versa. As mentioned, my looper is in multi-mode, so I can't just kind of start one and have the other stop. I do have to kind of micromanage a little bit here. So for instance, going from the chorus into the verse, I'm going to hit stop on track 2 to end the chorus when I'm ready to do the transition, and then on the last measure, I'm going to hit play on the verse. This will cleanly end the chorus at the end of its run and start the verse immediately on the following measure, which is what I want. So I do have to hit 2 buttons instead of 1, but it's not that hard. And to do the verse into the chorus, it's going to be the opposite direction. It's going to be stopping track 3 and then starting track 2 on the next measure. So I kind of have that same timing. So I basically hit 2 buttons, either stop track 2 and start track 3, or stop track 3 and start track 2 on the last measure before the transition. Let's see how that looks here.
And I wanna be someone who believes, yeah, Mr. Jones and me.
And the last tricky part of the song, as I mentioned, is the bridge section. So the bridge is played without any loops at all. I want to kind of keep it true to the original, so it becomes just a straight acoustic song for a bit. And I do kind of try to slow it down going into the, coming back into the song. So what I do is, as I'm getting close to the part where the song is kind of coming back into a chorus, I'm going to start to bring the song back up to tempo by using the pulse on the RC600 to tell me what the tempo is on the device, to help me kind of guide so I'm not jarringly going to a new tempo as soon as I hit the button. And then all I do is hit track 1 and 2 start, come back into the chorus. Note, this is why on this song, track 2 is the one I put the chorus on, because there's a part of the song where I need to come into the percussion and track 2. That's kind of how I think about track 2 versus track 3. So with that, let's see how that goes.
Even anything, and I wanna be someone who believes, yeah, Mr. Jones and me, stumbling through the bio.
And that's basically it. That's how I handle Mr. Jones. Let's go to the next one.
Keep me searching for heart of gold, and I'm getting old.
So this is a classic tune, and it's probably a pretty traditional style of loop for what you're used to seeing. In this song, I'm going to be using my guitar to sub in for the harmonica, because I don't play harmonica. Sorry. So what I do is I record the chords behind the harmonica to solo over it. Now, there's a couple interesting things about the song's timing. There is a signature guitar part that happens prior to the first harmonica solo. So I'm going to be kind of starting with the more, put down some drums, begin the kind of acoustic original intro, then pause briefly to add chords to do the harmonica part, and then play the harmonica part. So that's going to be the intro. And when we get to coming back into the harmonica part later in the song, I'm going to use a specific trick that I'll describe when I get there. But first, let's talk about the intro. So as mentioned, I'm going to start by recording a drum groove on track 1. You may notice that sometimes I start with drums and sometimes I don't. That's just to break up my arrangements generally. In this case, I think it's just cleaner to do it this way. And especially because I do have a guitar part that is not the loop that I'm going to be starting to play. So as soon as the drum groove is done on track 1, I'm going to start playing an acoustic guitar part that is signature to the song before I then stop to add chords for the harmonica part and then immediately play back over it. So let's show you how that goes. The note that when I do the harmonica part, what I'm doing is I'm actually using a combination of my distortion, or my lead tone, if you will, alongside this Mel 9 pedal, which I use to do kind of a fake harmonica or non-guitar sound, if you will. I use this for spice. But that does mean I have a couple additional clicks to kind of get into the harmonica part, and that's where the rest of the tricky parts of this are going to come. Now, I could, as I'll demonstrate, just go from the chorus into the harmonica part by just hitting a lot of buttons in time to get this happening. Basically, starting the loop that I need, turning on distortion, turning on the mel 9. The trick there is one of timing. I'm playing the chorus on the rhythm guitar, and then I'm trying to change the guitar tone to play the harmonica part, which happens pretty immediately. And the problem there is either I'm playing the chorus chords with some effect on it, or I'm playing the harmonica part without any effect on it, just because of the way time works. I don't have time to hit all the buttons at once, and as I'm a standing guitarist, I can't use both feet at once to compress that further. So what I'm going to do is first show kind of the awkward but straightforward way that I can approach this section, and then going to come back to what I do to make this easier. So let's see that kind of the hard way.
Searching for a heart of gold, and I'm getting old.
So that's a lot of clicking that happens. It's a little error prone, and it doesn't sound perfect because there's no way to make the guitar sound exactly the right way at all times. So what I do in cases like this, and you'll see this in the next arrangement as well, is I try to use something I call a transition loop. Basically, I take the part of the song that's played right before one of these guitar tone shifts, and I record that as another loop. Now I have track 3 free here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record the chorus chords on track 3. And the whole reason for doing that is so the rhythm guitar can kind of go on autopilot to free my, my guitar, to stop playing guitar, to change the guitar tone, so I can cleanly go from the chorus into the harmonica part. So what I'll do here is, again, on the, as I come into the first chorus, I'm going to record on track 3. Then once I've gone through one chorus set of chords, which happens twice in this particular song, I'm going to hit play again on track 3 to tell it how long that is. It's going to play back the chorus chords, which frees me to change the guitar tone to prepare to play the harmonica solo. Then I'm going to hit stop on track 3 and hit play on track 2 on the last measure before the solo. Same thing as we did on Dreams. So with that, here's how that looks.
These expressions I'll never give keep me searching for a heart of gold, and I'm getting old. Keep me searching for a heart of gold, and I'm getting old.
And this idea of a transition loop is certainly handy if you happen to have the extra tracks as I do. It's something I've started incorporating more. I use this actually just to do things like add percussion to my drum groove. If I want to like create a loop that just frees me up to do other things to my other loops, to manage the request queue, to engage with an audience and say thank you for a tip. I use this for a lot of things, but this is a case where it really helps mechanically get through the arrangement of the song cleaner. So with that, let's go into the last song.
Therefore, the sun came up that day.
So the last song I'm going to feature here highlights the answer to the question, what do you do when you have a loop that you need, but it doesn't occur organically in the song before you get to it, or even for quite a while? In this case, I'm going to be trying to play the solo to the song The Way by Fastball, and that solo section is unique to the solo section. But it turns out, and I do look for this in my arrangements, that it actually makes a pretty good intro. So what I'm going to do is actually record some drums, similar to the last couple. Then I'm going to record the solo section as an intro. I'm going to kind of dramatically end it, and then I'm going to come into the song with just the percussion track 1 loop. And we'll kind of get to how I further support the solo section as I go, but this is an interesting way to approach. If you need a loop but there's no natural place to fit it, you can kind of make it dramatic by just literally using it as an intro to a song, make the arrangement your own a bit. So with that, let's get into the loop building. Again, track 1, I'm going to be recording basic percussion here. Then immediately I'm going to play the solo chords on track 2 as I record them. I'm going to end with all start stop. Now, the all start stop will kind of finalize the recording on track 2, so you do have those chords ready to go on track 2 when you need them, which in this case is quite a bit further into the song. I won't need these for quite a while. So let's show you that intro here.
They made up their minds.
Now at this point, there is another consideration. When I do get to the solo, I'm going to be hitting a lot of buttons to get the guitar tone really strong above the mix because there's a lot going on at this point in the song. So what I'm going to be doing is actually using chorus, distortion, delay, volume up, a bunch of things. There's a bunch of buttons that are going to be hitting at once. And so again, similar to Heart of Gold, I'm going to be wanting to give myself time to change the guitar tone. So I'm going to use another transition loop. In this case, I'm going to use the back half of the solo section. I'm going to put that on track 3. I'm going to record it with track 3 start and end the recording with track 3 stop. I do not want it to play back the chorus really ever, kind of more than once, but I definitely don't want to play it back here. So you'll see me kind of copy this into the looper as I go here.
They'll never be hungry, they'll never be old and gray. You can see the shadows wandering off somewhere. They won't make it home, but they really don't care. They wanted the highway, they're happier than today. Today, the children woke up.
And finally, this is the part where I'm going to get to the solo. You're going to see me playing and singing the chorus with the looper effectively running tracks 1 and 3. I'm going to tell it to stop track 3 and then set up my guitar tone and then hit track 2 play right before the solo. And that will basically set up my guitar to play the solo cleanly. Here's how that looks.
Get home, but they really don't care. They wanted the highway, they're happier there today. Today.
Now, quick pause before we get to the end of the solo. There's a lot going on coming into the chorus at the end here. I do need to set my guitar tone back, but because I end the guitar solo with an all start stop, nothing is playing, I quickly turn the guitar tones back off and then turn back on track 1 to play that last chorus.
Anyone can see the road they walk on is paved in gold.
And with that, let's get to the end of the video. So those are just a few of the songs that I do and some of the patterns that I use to approach various kinds of songs. There are others I could have chosen. I thought these 5 kind of hit an increasing complexity that felt good for a video of this type. But if there's something you'd like to know more of, if you've seen a cover of mine, you're like, how did you approach this? Can you do a deep dive? Please let me know. If you want to see full covers of these, I do have covers of Mr. Jones and Dreams on the channel. The Dreams one is not the best quality, to be honest, but I'm happy to kind of record something if someone wants to see how the whole song comes together in context. Or if there's other topics you'd like me to cover, I want to say thank you for the support that I've gotten on the channel. And if you did get something out of this video, share it with friends, musician friends, people who are loop curious. Again, a couple of these arrangements are really, I think, approachable for newbie loopers in particular. And I hope you take a moment to subscribe as well. I am trying to grow this channel. It's been really rewarding. Some of the feedback I've gotten, especially nice comments for people that say they've gotten value out of these videos. Thank you. It does take a lot of effort to make these videos, and I appreciate the appreciation, if you will. And also, the goal of this channel is really to provide information that hopefully helps you in your looper journey. Or if you're just curious, if you've seen a looper and want to know what they do, and you're here because you just want to know what's going on with the foot tapping, welcome. And I hope you have got something out of it too. I know it's kind of aimed at people who are doing more intermediate looping in general, but hopefully this has been somewhat approachable for folks who are newer. And with that, I'm going to end the video here and say thank you again. Again, I can do more of this kind of stuff. Just let me know what you'd like to see. Leave a comment, do subscribe, and you have a great day, and I'll catch you next time.